people just suck at interviewing, but it doesn't mean they're not the right fit. So by doing these things, you give yourself a better chance of identifying who's the right fit as opposed to just who's the better interviewer. I don't know what he's going to say about sell the future, but my guess is it's like, look, we have a cool company. We have a great career path. You should be a part of us. My guess is it's going to be something like that.
Number 6 is sell the future. And my whole thing there is talk about their vision for their 5 years. What do they want to accomplish? Who do they want to become?
I like that. He's more focusing on them. It makes sense. If your job can fulfill their personal goals, your retention and keeping good people drastically increases, which means your profitability increases because you don't have to go through the turnover that most companies do.
They want to get paid. I sell the possibility of that coming true, and then I try to scare them away because I don't want them to take a job because they need a job. I want them to take the job because they want the job. Now that you know how to get them in, how do you get the most out of them? Which brings us to chapter 11, transformational leadership. I had one person on my finance team come to me and ask me about expenses and costs or putting a budget together. And they're like, do you know what it costs? And I said, now, do I know? Probably, maybe. But if I tell them, then guess what? Every time they have a question about budgets, they're going to come to me. I'm not teaching them to go fish. And too often people hire folks and then do their job for them. So there's two.
He's already kind of talked about that in a previous thing, but yes, as a leader, don't give the answers, because by coaching them through coming up with their own answers, you've helped them develop critical thinking, which is the only real way to grow a successful business. You need as many team members as possible critically thinking through problems. He called it cloning yourself before with just the admin stuff, but I think of the same way of like, I want you to clone my thought process. If everyone is going through my thought process to help this company go, from 3 million to 30 million plus, we're going to be in good shape. So help them clone your thought processes is the way I think about this.
Types of leaders. There's transactional and transformational. A transactional leader tells somebody what to do, checks that it got done, and then tells them what to do next.
And it's not sustainable.
Doom loop, because if you keep doing that, you'll always be the person that has to do it, which means at about 12 employees, you'll wake up in the morning.
Or about 20 employees in my case.
You don't get anything done on your project list. Versus transformational leadership is completely different. I start with the outcome. The outcome is get a budget put together so that the leadership team can make decisions about the financial state of the business. When you have that done, it is done. 2 is measure. Measure how they're making progress. Tell me where you're at from a % complete on creating the budget, and send me a text message every hour or every day, depending on how long the project will take, so that we know that you're on pace to get it done within a reasonable amount of time. 3 is to coach. Coach is, if you feel like somebody is delaying themselves, write it down. And next time you do a one-on-one meeting with them, coach them up. The more you...
Yeah, I've never put words to the way we help our team members critically think or develop their critical thinking, but this is solid. That's what he's doing here. I'm going to tell you what I want the outcome to be. Another way he said it is, I'm going to define for you what done looks like, but I'm going to give you the autonomy, which A players love the autonomy. They're going to thrive with that. And then you coach them along the way so that they're thinking through it, and so that they're concluding what the right answer is, and that they're saying it out loud, which really solidifies learning. Think, conclude, verbalize. Really, really solid approach to being a leader and how you're coaching. And as your team grows, you actually have to start training your other leadership team members to do the same thing. So now, not only are you training other people to clone your mind, you're now training them to also train other people to clone the way you approach solving problems.
Do this. It might feel slow at first, but it is so much faster down the road, because then people aren't staring at you to get their work done. They understand the vision you have and the outcomes that they own, and they're going to drive towards them. So that's why I teach the coach framework. So I break it into 3 core parts. The first one of the coach is CO, which stands for core issue. When I'm working with somebody, I'm going to pull up one specific issue that I feel if I can help them overcome will have a force multiplier effect in their life and their ability to execute and be effective on the team. The second is I like to use an actual story of when I learned how to do the thing that I'm going to coach them up on, because then it makes it real. It provides context. It creates the glue for them to go, oh, my leader's human and he's also faced this, and it's really cool that he shares with me a little bit vulnerability of where he wasn't great at it. Then the third part is change. And that is all about getting them to commit to some aspect of change. So I'll turn it on them and ask them, based on what I shared, what are you going to change in your behavior going forward?
So it's a model that works for him. There's about 1 billion coaching models out there. Find the one that works for you. But as long as whatever you're doing is not giving them the answers and helping them come up with their own answers, I think you're going to be okay.
And that's where I get commitment. Once you coach that way, you will never do it differently. Because when you build your people, the people build the business. But leading people isn't easy without trust. Which brings us to chapter 12, the F word that will save your business. Sometimes I can be an idiot. One time I was on a Zoom call and there's this guy, Jacob, on the team that ran all of our automation. And I was a little frustrated with him for not getting things done on time. And somebody else on the call brought up his name about them having to wait for him to get back to them. And I'm talking crap about him. And then all of a sudden somebody else on the call says, hey, I just want you to know Jacob's on the call. So yeah, I had to apologize. And I used this specific principle to help have that conversation. It's called the clear principle.
I don't know if I've ever made a mistake that drastic, but I can feel it. It's a good story. Makes me feel the emotion of, awkwardness. We've been there to some degree though, as a business owner, I'm sure.
Essentially a conversation format that I use to remove any frustration you might have with your team members and them with you. Because if there's emotional venom that's piling up and then all of a sudden you don't trust somebody, you're micromanaging them and they're always talking back to you in meetings, it creates a very hostile environment that you could literally clear all that emotional angst by just having this conversation. So C stands for create a warm environment. I want you to get one-on-one with the person, appreciate them for coming into the meeting and having the conversation with you and just making sure you set the environment to be warm and approachable and lead with empathy. The L stands for lead them to offering feedback. This is where I share with somebody that I want to be a better leader for them and I can't do that if I don't get feedback. And the only way is if they're honest with me, and asking for them to share feedback with me is the key to starting this conversation. E stands for emphasize. Emphasize means to restate to them when they give you that feedback what you heard. And then A stands for ask if there's more. Most people will say there's nothing big or they'll bring something small up. And when you say, is there anything else? Usually they know. And they're wondering if you were actually willing to listen. R stands for reject or accept. I'm not saying because somebody gave me feedback, I have to accept it every time. They might say, you're an asshole. And I go, I don't know if I agree. So essentially it's your opportunity to say, I just want to give you some perspective on why I made that decision. That might be a rejection. Or you might say, I accept that feedback. And based on that, going forward, I'm going to make a commitment to change these things in the future. To me, feedback becomes the ability to inoculate resentment. Without it, everybody's thinking it, but they've never said it. And if you specifically as a leader don't create the space for people to give you honest feedback, how are you going to get better? You may not realize that there's something you're doing that's frustrating everybody, but because you've never asked, they don't want to tell you. And it means that your team's underperforming. It creates the foundation of trust. But now that you've built trust with your team.
So the stuff that he covered here, I think the Bible on communication is crucial conversations. We give that copy of the book to every new team member. So he's saying the same things that book does, but it's an entire book on the subject. And so what he's saying, I agree with. I think I would just add, especially as your team gets bigger, but I found this to be the case with 12 team members or 20 team members or 50 or 300. You're going to have some bad team members that are just whiny. They're not ultimately the right fit, but they're doing enough to keep their job. And you're busy enough with maybe growth that you're not making a concerted effort to hire a new person to replace this person because they're doing enough. I think every business owner gets to that point, right or wrong, we keep them because they're doing enough. But some of those people and the feedback they have or what they're frustrated with has no actual value to you or the company. I think it's helpful to receive it so that if you start getting the same, even if I had like 10 people on my team that I'm like, you guys aren't really going to be with us for the long term, but they all say the same thing. Okay, there's a common message there. I should probably maybe consider it. So I just make sure you're filtering things out. If you're ever going to default to one end or the other, assume all the feedback you receive is worth taking action on, so you take time to think about it. But through time and doing this for 2 decades, you can develop the ability to kind of hear someone's feedback and be like, all right, I know that that's just simply not true. Well, he kind of said that, but I wanted to say it in a different way. You have permission to ignore some of the feedback.
How do you get them to dream even bigger? Which brings us to chapter 13, dream big, achieve bigger. One of my clients called me from New York City and he said, hey Dan, other than this call right now, I've got my whole week open. Buying back my time was the coolest thing ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I was just like, oh, I'm sorry. You must not have read my book and understood what I'm talking about, because my whole point of buying back your time is to build your empire. See, I think everybody should lean into building the biggest life they possibly can.
And that really goes back to the same principle we talked about earlier, which I referred to as the garden box theory. If you're not trying to grow, or if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. I think you should keep thinking, where's the next stage of growth? Not just like, cool, I'm effectively retired. A lot of people die younger when they retire because they've taken away life's purpose. So keep giving yourself a purpose, even if you need to reinvent it or change it. But I agree with him. Like, keep thinking, how do you grow?
Not live the easiest life. Empire stands for building a life of unlimited creation you never have to retire from. I want you to come up with crazy ideas and build that. So that's why I created these 3 phases to a 10x vision. Phase number 1 is dream without limits. Most people dream so small, it never has a potential to move them. If you dream really big, it makes your daily decisions so much easier because you can evaluate, will this bring me closer to my vision?
That's a nice car.
Closer to my dream? And if it doesn't, you say no, and you keep searching for the thing that's gonna help make that happen. Phase 2 is you want to create a clear vision. When I think of a clear vision, there's 4 core areas I look at. I ask myself, what kind of team do I want to work with? Who are the people that would be around me that inspire me? What kind of business do I want to create? The vibe, the culture, the vehicles, the travel, the customers you're working with. How do you want all of that to be part of a bigger empire that not only creates a world-class living for you, but also creates a platform for everybody that you care about in your team to also become wealthy and the lifestyle? And for me, this is about the integrated life. How do I want my kids to interact? How do I want my family to be involved? How do I want it to just be my life? Not I work and then I do life. It's your ability to impact your local community and have your team members be involved in that. The whole package brings you to create a clear vision. Phase 3 is live in it. I want you to visualize your dream life. I want you to visualize the creation of it. What does it feel like? What are the conversations you're having? Think about the experiences that you're going to create and just be in the energy of having received, because if you can't feel it, you can't create it. Your frequency is what you frequently see. Now that you've got that vision, how do you actually execute on it? Which brings us to chapter 14, the preloaded year.
So as I have vision, obviously I have goals and where I want the company to go and how I want it to change the industry and how I want it to affect people's lives. And I want work-life harmony across the board. But I'm not quite the visionary the way he is and other like celebrity business advice people, like I feel like status he's coming to, like him and Alex Hormozy, for example. And so I think it's always helpful to encourage people to dream big. To me, the thing would be, that is more of a framework for you though. Like, how do you dream big? Thinking about back when I started my career, there's no point I ever would have dreamed the company would be what it is today. And so if things probably would have grown faster if I did. And so I agree with him. We need to take the training wheels off on what we think is big, what we think is possible. Say it out loud, write it down. Even if you think it's impossible, is it something that would be really cool if it happened? So I agree with that. What he's doing here, what he's suggesting, and the framework seems like a nice, easy way for you as an entrepreneur to step into. Maybe I can figure out how to dream a little bit bigger. And ultimately, the framework is really just permission for you to dream bigger. There's nothing wrong. I like the idea of like, how do I integrate people into these different things? That's fun. But I do like the work-life harmony. And I think we should all be approaching work as I'm not living to work, but I'm working so that I can live. And as you buy back your time based on the title of his book, or you live the 3.3 rule, you're going to find you have a lot more time for personal stuff than you used to. And the business is surviving and thriving just fine.
How do you actually execute on it? Which brings us to chapter 14, the preloaded year. Most people overestimate what they can get done in a year and underestimate what they can get done in a decade. The truth is, if you plan right, you can get more done in a year than you do in a decade. But
I also think in today's day and age, other than like a gigantic vision, thinking about what's happening in a decade, to me seems crazy, but maybe that's why I haven't reached the level of success that Dan Martell has reached. I mean, people are like, oh, what's your 3 to 5 year business goals? Like, dude, I can tell you what my 12-week or my 12-year, well, my current year 12-month goal is. 3 to 5 years, like, grow as much as possible. Does putting a number on actually change? It hasn't for me. And if you saw our growth, you'd be like, whoa, that's crazy. And that's just a personal thing, I guess.
Going to require a completely different strategy. Number one is rocks, pebbles, and sand. If you had a jar and you were trying to,
I already talked about this.
Pebbles and sand and water into the jar, but you started with the water and the sand. By the time you got to the pebbles and the rock, there wouldn't be enough room for everything. But if you start with the big rocks and you place 2 or 3 big rocks in that jar, and then the pebbles all around, and you shake the jar a little bit and it kind of settles in, then you pour the sand in slowly and it kind of fills in all the rest of the space, and then you have a whole glass of water and you pour that in the jar and the whole thing fits easily. That's the idea of planning your year. The second thing is to add maintenance. This is looking at things in your life that you know are best practices so that you stay on top of them so that they don't become an issue. I mean, it's like if you're...
I 100% believe in systems of maintenance. You have to build this stuff in. Totally agree. This is an undervalued tool to success.
Feeling dehydrated. By the time you feel like you got to drink something, you're about 20 minutes too late. So you're better off just scheduling the time that you stay hydrated so that you don't get behind. I think about my weekly meetings with my wife as like a family meeting, my quarterly retreats with her so that we disconnect to reconnect, my board meetings with my kids, that's what I call them, but these very dedicated, ritualistic experiences where I know that I have this time in my calendar and it's a priority. So I'm not trying.
I'm just saying, it sounds like he's a good husband and a good father. So I think good on him to have the level of business success he has with what appears to be a really healthy relationship with the members of his family. I mean, props.
Repair things because I allowed relationships to strain because I was so busy on work. The third is to work to plan, to go all in and say, this is my plan for the year. Here's what I've committed to. These are my priorities and I'm going to execute, even if I don't feel like it. Number 4 is to review and adjust. My wife,
even if I don't feel like it, that's the plan. You will reach a point as a small business owner. You don't want to do what you know you need to do to move the business the way you need to. You got to have the discipline to work the plan.
I've been doing this for almost a decade, and at the end of the year, we always take time to review everything we did the previous year and ask yourself a simple question. Would we do it again, or should we just take it out of the calendar? I mean, it's either an F yeah, this lit us up, want to do more of that, or it was meh, and meh is good, and good isn't great, so we decided to cancel that and create space for us to evaluate new opportunities. So every year, we adjust, we review, and I'm telling you, our years are getting pretty.
And to me, that's not just like what he's talking about with his personal life, which is critical, I think, but within your business, we call them debriefs. These debriefs are so valuable because it really is a chance for everyone to think, conclude, and verbalize. So now everyone critically thinks better. But I mean, I obviously love the idea, especially from the personal side. Let's make sure the time that we are spending is the most enjoyable for us. We don't want to keep doing stuff that's like, oh, that was kind of lame.
Our years are getting pretty special, but it only happens if you plan and it requires the preloaded year as a strategy. But what is this all really for? Which brings us to the conclusion, the buyback lifestyle. This is one of the most important chapters in the whole book because it shows what's possible. Entrepreneurs lose most of their productivity at home, not their office. Most people clean their home before the cleaning person comes over.
I mean, we'll see where he goes with this. But the clients we work with, they lose so much productivity based on how they structure their workday. What they want to, so we take that approach. We're not necessarily getting into the nuances of maybe should you hire a cleaning company for your house. To me, that's at the stage of life where it's like, I have enough money to bring back my time, because if I free up time, say cleaning the house, I don't want to spend that on work if I'm not at work. That's not work-life harmony. The goal isn't to free up so much personal time so that I can work that much longer. I don't know where he's going with this. But I think most people lose their productivity in the workday. Structure it the right way, do the 3.3 rule. We'll see what he says.
over. Allow people to support you in your life. And just because your mom always did this or your dad always did that doesn't mean that you have to do it. This world we live in where you can literally out-task so many things in your home, from meal prep to groceries to running errands so that you can get all that time back. Why wouldn't you take it?
Yeah, and again, I like the convenience of it, but what are you getting the time back for? Hopefully it's to spend more time with your loved ones.
Advantage of it. So these are the 4 levels of the buyback life. Level 1 is cleaning.
Every chapter has had a tool, in case you haven't noticed that. So it does help with comprehension, it helps for the reader. So think about that from your business standpoint. What are you doing that maybe you could put a framework around that makes it easier for your clients to follow? I just thought that's interesting. Literally every chapter, he has some of these breakaway things, these images of like, here's the system for this specific chapter.
Cleaning and errands. If you have the means, you should have somebody that cleans your house. I had a client that had a hard time with this, and I said, do you want to create employment in your community? Because you continue to hold on to running errands and cleaning your house is missing the opportunity to create a job for somebody that really needs it. Level 2 is meals and supplies. Think about all the things that have to be replenished in your home. All of that could be hours a week gotten back for very little investment. Level 3 is family support. Now, I know that this one will be a little tough because you're a parent and you're supposed to do this stuff, but somebody else can drive your kids to school in the morning. Somebody else can pick them up. Back in the day, those people were just part of your family, but because we all live in different places, you may not have them in your city anymore. And it's okay to pay somebody else to come in and take over the role that maybe a mom or grandma used to play in the past. Level 4 is projects and ownership. And this is...
So I can support 1 and 2. I get that. Honestly, I've tried to convince my wife to do it, but she wants to do it. Makes her feel valuable, so I'm not gonna I don't want to jump in the way of her feeling valuable. Family support, I don't know. It's your call. I think as a parent, I've had some of my most memorable, deep, good character building conversations with my children in the car, on car rides, because I can't go anywhere. It is funny though, when I'm at home trying to do something, they tend to talk a lot more than when we are in the car. And so I feel like I have to pull stuff out, but some of my best conversations have been in the car, transporting my children. But your call. To me, work-life harmony, I wouldn't want to give that part up.
Ownership. And this is the coolest, highest level you can get to, which is have somebody that acts like the CEO of your family. Somebody that takes over all the...
It's an interesting concept. I'll see what Maury has to say. I know there are people who have house managers, and that might be something that really takes care of 1, 2, and 3, where they're organizing that. So we'll see what he says here, CEO of your house. He did already clarify it though, like this is a season of life. Like if you're struggling in the beginning and you're burnt out and you're freeing up time because it's gonna help your business, you're probably not at this level yet, but I guess it's a good goal to know about. What's the long-term vision, which he did explain. That is the purpose of this chapter, to show you what's possible.
Projects, all the real estate, all the car stuff, the maintenance, everything, all your travel, have somebody else own it so that you can do 1 of 2 things. That's where I live.
Yeah, that's like a house manager.
Spend time with people I love, or I go do things to create value in the world that only I can do. Those are the only 2 things that you will see me do because I love it, and everything else I'm willing to buy back my time for it. I understand.
Which is awesome for him. Again, props, lots of business success. He is at a stage that he can choose to do only those 2 things. Most of the clients we've worked with, and even in my earlier career, I had to do, there was more things other than those 2 exact things that I had to do. So good for him. I like that that's the vision that you can try to get to. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Let you know it's possible, but don't feel bad if you're not there yet.
I'm willing to buy back my time for it. I understand learning to let go is the hardest thing in the world. There's emotional shrapnel involved in it. There's the fear that somebody's going to make you look bad. There's the fear that somebody's going to cost you your whole business. These are all real fears. But what I want to invite you to consider is that on the other side of doing the work is a world of freedom that you have no idea that you could live, that you're allowed to live, that you could live sooner than you ever thought possible. And it requires you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you want to learn how my days look like as a 9-figure CEO, click here and I'll see you on the other side.
So that's the second way for him to get your information, to create a relationship with you for you to be at his list. So from a marketing standpoint, again, pretty cool. So overall, it's a good book. I do think it's interesting if you've read any books, and I'll throw mine in there. My original book was the 3.3 rule, and we have Take Breaks Work Better that's going to be coming out in September, which is a simplified version of the 3.3 rule. Half the size, easier to get through, because we wanted to make it more accessible to people. I don't want to minimize the great advice that he gave in the video. Lots of people give the same advice and they just say it in different words. I did that in the course of this video. So there's lots of different books you can read that are going to cover the same stuff. In fact, every single chapter of his book is an entire book written by somebody else on the topic of, how to have meetings with your employees. So solid stuff. What I like about it, depending on your state of where you're at in small business owners, reading something like this, if a lot of it's new information to you, will change your life. Will absolutely change your life. I've read enough of these that they're not necessarily life-changing, but the one or two unique ways that every author approaches specific things based on their own experiences does give me really great new ways to think about it myself, which then allows me to adapt and adjust the foundational things that I already have in place. And so maybe you're at that state as well. So to me, definitely sounds like a great read. Yeah, there you go. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for listening.